Don't you?
Bob, may I?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Professionally, I mean, we could have 2 new replacements right now.
The following program has been paid for by Blue Umbrella.
A little known detail about the Resident Evil games is that despite the many genetically altered bioweapons, there are many natural-born viruses that are intertwined with the genetic experiments of Umbrella and its successors. These viruses and other natural-born infectious vectors tend to be involved with evolutions of certain species on the planet, which would bring weight to a viral-based evolution, some of which were combined with the T-virus and other genetically modified pathogens to create even more deadlier BOWs. This is all the documented viruses from nature. While it is not the oldest viral organism in existence, it is the most well-known, as the progenitor virus was the first virus used in experiments by the newly formed Umbrella Corporation. Originally existing as a junk DNA in many living organisms, it was cultivated within the African daisy known as Stairway to the Sun by the Endopia tribe. Their ancient tradition was for one of their number to endure infection by consuming the flower, and if they were to survive, they would be granted superhuman abilities and be made king. The ancient Endopia were also the first to cultivate bioorganic weapons, as depicted by murals found within their ancient city. They were used as execution beasts and war animals, and were what eventually caused the downfall of the ancient civilization, leading to their retreat from the underground city. It wasn't until the 1960s when Umbrella began their research into the virus and created a viable sample for the development of advanced versions and bioweapons research. The experiments were undertaken by virologist and Umbrella co-founder Dr. James Marcus, which led to the creation of the first Umbrella BOWs. It was found that when injected into the body of a leech, that the virus's genome changed, and this strain would eventually come to be called the tyrant virus. Subjects exposed to the progenitor virus display very minor mutations in contrast to later strains. Bodily growth and muscle growth were prime examples of mutations derived from the progenitor infection. There was also an increase in aggression of infected subjects. Creatures such as the Lurker lost the use of their eyes, and the Stinger BOW lost the ability to poison with its stinger. Known BOWs and irregular mutants created through the progenitor virus were the Leeches and their queen, Eliminators, the Giant Bat, a variant of Giant Spider found within the Executive Training Facility, the Centurion, Stinger, and Lurkers. The progenitor virus has not been used in any bioterror attacks. However, all modern-day mutagenic viruses are derived from the Umbrella cultivated strain. This factor has preserved it as the grandfather of all current bioweapon viruses. Within the genome of ants was an ancient virus which was responsible for the evolution of the species over the course of their existence. A sample was isolated in the body of an ant queen and extracted by young virologist Alexia Ashford, and used in the synthesis of the T-Veronica virus, along with genes from certain plants and the DNA of Veronica Ashford, matriarch of the Ashford family. This can be seen with the insectine appearance Alexia takes on as her mutations continue to proceed. Ants were also minimally affected by the Veronica virus, more than likely because of the ancient virus used in the synthesis of it, as well as the dormant strains in their bodies. Mainly growing like a normal virally enhanced creature, they've also gained the traits of ant queens, obtaining wings, and all have become fertile, and are some of the rare breed of BOW that can reproduce on their own. They were symbiotically linked with the Veronica plant found within the Antarctic base, as well as Alexia herself, viewing her as their queen. Similarly to the progenitor virus, there have been no modern bioterror incidents involving the ancient virus in any form, and seeing as it exists as dormant strain within ants, and has not been used on its own in the past, it is highly unlikely it will be synthesized into a bioweapon-like strain. Parasites have long existed since the pre-Cambrian age. However, not many have gained the survival skills that are associated within the Plaga parasite. Plaga are of an unknown taxonomy. and were known to have existed in both Spain and Africa, as fossilized remains were found within the ruins of the Endopia kingdom. In the wild, Plaga larva would infect a smaller life form and slowly go up the food chain until it was unknowingly consumed by a larger animal or human, wherein it would take over the host's central nervous system and use them as puppets to further their own survival. It has been known that the Plaga would allow a host to keep its humanity until the parasite was threatened, after which it would assume full control of the host. A dead medieval culture had started worship of the parasite around the time of the Crusades in an unknown region of Spain, which had practiced human sacrifice and had a stranglehold on the region. A prospective Spanish warrior, Lord Salazar, had led an assault and slaughtered the cult, sealed the caves in which they and the creatures inhabited, and built a large castle over the site, becoming the region's first castellan. It wasn't until the 1990s did Osmond Sadler rediscover the history of the parasite and started a bioterrorist cell in the guise of a religion called Los Illuminados. Through their activities, it was discovered that the Plaga could somehow shed their arthropod form and hibernate as a microscopic spore to survive the years of entombment and isolation. Breathing in the spores also served as a method by which they could infect a host. Eggs could also be harvested and injected into new hosts to continue the species. In human hosts, the Plaga parasites would exit the neck and essentially form a secondary head by which they would pilot the body. Larval forms defended themselves with naturally grown tendril blades, and resembled a human brain when exposed. The second stage resembled a leech-like creature with vestigial legs, and could easily decapitate a human being. The adult type, which resembled spiders with tails, looked comically oversized in comparison to their hosts. They had the ability to spit acid, and could be separated from their host and act independently. Despite this ability, however, they still depended on their host for survival, and would die if left severed for too long. All natural Plaga types were nocturnal, and had an aversion to sunlight and UV radiation, which would kill them from exposure. From this standard subject, Los Illuminados and other bioterror cells created genetically altered versions of the Plaga parasites, in their experiments to create bioweapons. The most well-known variant being the control-type strain, which granted the users the ability to control the standard variant through subsonic sound waves, and allowed users to control their mutations. Type 2 Plaga developed by Tricell used leech DNA injected into the strain to keep the Plaga from dying in direct sunlight. Heavy UV exposure from flash grenades still terminated them, however. Type 3 Plaga introduced the progenitor virus into their genome, which increased their rate of fatalities, but allowed for mutations to the host body, increasing host capabilities. Type 4 Plaga, created by unknown means, were used in the Eastern Slav Republic Civil War, creating a more zombie-like ganado capable of infecting others in a similar method to the Type 2 strain. Plaga genes were also used in the development of the Animality virus by bioterrorist and black market dealer Glenn Arias in 2014. The Plaga parasites were involved in the attempted attack and subjugation of the US by Los Illuminados in 2004. Genetically modified variants were also involved in the 2009 Kijuju incident and the Eastern Slav Civil War in 2010. Plaga-based BOWs are a popular form of bioweapon in the modern age. Their increase of intelligence in comparison to zombies and the fact that control strains exist still make them an easy-to-control BOW to deploy, and are considered an amicable threat in the fight against bioterrorism. Similarly to the ancient virus found within ants, the Abyss virus was found within the bodies of deep-sea fish that inhabit the depths of the Kermadec Trench. On its own, it exists as a way for the fish to regulate the water pressure on and within their bodies, and was discovered by a research team at the Montpellier University of Marine Science. Morgan Lansdale of the Federal Bioterrorism Commission and the radically inclined research team developed the virus into a T variant, creating the T-Abyss virus, and was used in the 2004 Terra Grigia panic and in the years following the attack. T-Abyss would apply more aquatic traits upon infected subjects, and it was said that the Gyozo BOW, which were infected fish, mutated to resemble the fish in which the virus was found. It is safe to say that on its own, the Abyss virus is non-mutative and will not be used in a bioterror attack. Samples of T-Abyss did survive the investigation into Il Veltro, and will possibly end up on the black market eventually. While viral and parasitic-based BOWs are commonplace on the black market, it wasn't out of the cards for a fungal-based mutagen to be discovered. In a mountainous region of Europe, a species of mold was discovered by Miranda, a native of the region, during a Spanish flu outbreak in 1919. The mold would consume countless living things, humans, animals, and even corpses, which would grant its supercolony knowledge and the ability to catalog the minds and personalities of the live individuals it consumed. The mold even had the ability to make copies of beings it consumed, which perfectly resembled the original. It also had the ability to infest a corpse to revive it in a zombie-like state. Mold can also induce mutations in creatures as well. This is shown best with the Cadeau parasite. Originally a nematode, when exposed to the mold, a Cadeau parasite gains the mutagenic abilities as well as the ability to produce eggs. The mold's natural ability to store information of previous hosts and meals allowed it to essentially clone previous subjects, and was believed that it could bring deceased individuals back to life through a certain process, although the only attempt at this failed. Mother Miranda, more a religious zealot than a bioterrorist, technically did commit a bioterrorism attack on her own village, using mold and Cadeau parasite-based mutants. Miranda had also assisted in the creation of the mutated species of mold, which was accidentally unleashed in Dulvey, Louisiana. It should be noted that despite its new abilities of creating molded BOWs and infecting hosts, similarly to other bioweapon-grade viruses, it still had the ability to combine the DNA of creatures, which the natural variant had, as shown with mutant insects found around the Baker residence. Bioweapons proved to be a horrifying force that is a threat to the future of humanity. However, nature proves that these horrors aren't just born from human intervention. This concludes this edition of Resident Evil Lore. Thank you for tuning into this broadcast.